some of us are very familiar with the theater. Some of us don't know much of anything about it. Would you just take a couple moments and tell us about Springfield Little Theatre?
Sure.
Kind of the size, the scope. You've got a lot of things going on.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Give us your pitch about the theater.
Sure. Well, Springfield Little Theatre is your community theater. So what people might not be aware of is that the people that you see on stage are all volunteers. So the quality of the production value now is very strong. So I think a lot of people don't realize that every single person on stage, off stage, is doing it because of the love of performing and the love of doing it. They also may not realize that you are seeing people with an entire gamut of experience level up there. You're seeing someone who is a brand new beginner who just walked off the street and has never had a theatrical experience in their life, to someone who may have had a career 30 years ago on a Broadway stage, to your doctor, to your lawyer, to your teacher, to kids that are 6 years old, all the way up to people in retirement. And we produce quite a lot. We have a robust schedule of both productions and of education offerings. And we're in our 85th anniversary season. We just opened this year with Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and we will be opening Little House on the Prairie, the musical, October 25th. We're in the middle of the casting process for Disney's Frozen Junior, which will open December 5th. In January, we'll bring Hello Dolly to the stage, starring Kim Crosby. And we're doing the last of the Tuna series. If any of you saw Greater Tuna or Tuna Does Vegas, featuring Beth Doman and Mark Gideon in many, many different roles. We're doing that, which should be a hoot, Matilda, and closing up the main stage season with Kinky Boots. We have home in the beautiful historic Landers Theater, which is downtown, which I saw in one of the videos earlier, and I got excited to see that. We also host Springfield Ballet's productions of The Nutcracker and an annual spring production in our home theater. Then on the other side, my official role at the theater is education director. And so we offer education experiences for students of all ages and levels of experience. We have classes in acting, musical theater, dance, voice, ballet, jazz, tap, hip-hop, voice and movement, monologues, film production class, where they can be a part of the backstage operations of the show and help bring some of the education series productions to life. And we are very excited to have just recently purchased a second space. So we had outgrown the space that we had available for classes and rehearsals at the theater and had been moving into migrated spaces all over the community. And we purchased the old McDaniel School, which was built in 1908. The Landers Theater was built in 1909. And so the architecture of the old McDaniel School feels in synchronicity with our beloved home base. It just feels right, and it's meeting our needs to serve our kiddos in a really great way. It's allowed us additional classroom and studio space, and then also accommodates 2 additional performance venues. So we have about a 55-seat black box studio theater now, and then an auditorium that's adjacent to the building that's a flexible performance space where we can host large rehearsals, but also performances on a very small, school-style stage. But it's a great training opportunity for kids. Our main stage productions are auditioned, and those auditions are open to anyone in the community. Our education series productions offer opportunities for anybody who wants to be involved. You just have to sign up. We're doing things like Little Prince, The Never-Ending Story, Willy Wonka Kids, Disney's Aristocats Kids, and a variety of other fun offerings, bringing in guest artists. So there's something happening all the time. If you're not familiar with the theater, you can visit us online at springfieldlittletheater.org or follow us on our Facebook page or give me a call, and I'd be happy to tell you more or to give you a tour of either building.
So with with all that space, with all those shows, with all those possibilities out there in front of you, about how many people do you think participate, volunteer, are on the stage? How many, and you've got 3 performance venues. How many people are involved?
Yeah. Well, that's a tricky question. I can answer it a lot of ways. Okay. So we probably see about 600 volunteers a year. We have 200 students in our youth performance troupe program, which are kids that stay together for the entirety of the school year, but see about another 200 students who come in for one-day experiences throughout the school year. And then in the summer, we will have about 700 enrolled in workshops, and we will see about 2,000 through other things that we participate in the summer. And our education outreach takes us to outlying areas into community events. We are serving over 30,000 and upwards of almost 40,000 young people a year through our outreach efforts.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
And you didn't even mention the number of people just that come and see shows.
Right.
Yeah. You touch a lot of people. Well, I was recently had the opportunity to hear one of your pitches because you were giving the opening stage welcome for Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat. And I've noticed this about your pitches in particular, is that you have an invitation. Every time, you tell people where the exits are, you tell people stay out of the aisles because people are going to be in the, running up and down the aisles. You do all that. And then you have this line in the middle where you say, come play with us. You, in particular, always say that, come play with us. It's like, is that invitation serious? Because Pastor Jim and I, we kind of fancy ourselves as, maybe we'd be court jesters more than anything else. But
absolutely. I'm completely serious. So there is truly a place for everybody that wants to be involved at Springfield Little Theatre, in one way or another. And don't be deterred by thinking that there's not an onstage place for you if that's something that you want to do. We have a route for you. We have an entry for you to get there. And what this additional space has allowed is to make sure that we have an entry for every single person that wants to be involved in some way. So that's a very accessible way to get involved and get your feet wet, to develop confidence, to train up for the main stage. Or you can bet there is first-time people all the time who audition, walk in right off the street, and jump right into that main stage show. So much more happens than what you see on the stage, and we are a volunteer-driven organization. So there are about 20 people on the backstage crew that make sure that everything moves smoothly. There's a deck crew, there's stage managers, there are people running the spotlights, people punching the light board, people running the sound. There are people who have crafted the costumes, who have worked on those, people who help dress people backstage. There are people who have come in and helped build the set. We have some volunteers who are so dedicated that they work as much as our full-time employees do. We're so lucky. We could not do what we do if they didn't lend their gifts and special talents and their extraordinary gifts of time. We need people at front of house. We need people to greet. We need ushers. We have a governing board, which is a volunteer. We have associate board comprised of young professionals, which that's volunteer opportunities. We have our Angels, which is a booster club for education. We have our Landers Flymen, which was created to help the fathers of the family find their in as well. We need people that help in a business office just to help with the administrative tasks. And the list is endless. There's something to do in some way to get involved for anybody that wants to be involved and be a part of it.
So I have to ask, I know that you are really serious when you say that, but then this comes back to you as a leader and a leader within the community. Where does that sense within the theater come from? How does it rise up in you where you see a place where everybody can be involved? Where does that come? What's the genesis of that for you as a leader?
Well, I grew up in the arts community in Springfield. I grew up as a student in Springfield Ballet, and I had a teacher who was very inclusive. And even as a child, I identified in him that personality where he saw every single person in the room and where he championed really the kids that probably weren't quite as gifted, that needed that attention. He was really a champion of those students, and I admired that from the very, very beginning. I was always grateful for the opportunities that I had growing up in the arts. As a part of Mid-America Children's Choir here in town, I got to be in a Springfield Regional Opera production. My parents are both have music backgrounds. They met in music. My dad was a band director before he became a principal. My mom was a choir director. I started as a volunteer at Springfield Little Theatre as well. I auditioned for a show when I was a child and had a wonderful time being a part of that. And then came back, and that's how I got my foot in the door. And the executive director at the time asked if because I danced well, asked if I also choreographed. And I said, well, yes, I do. And that's how I got hired to choreograph the first show. And then the rest was history. But the people that have had longevity on our staff, it's interesting to note, all started as volunteers. There's not one person there that has been there for a length of time that didn't start as a volunteer and have that investment, which I think is really interesting.
When you get to hang around parents, and I get to hang around parents because I drop off and pick up and that kind of thing, one of the things I hear parents often say is that their kids, because of that sense of inclusiveness, have found their place. They found their people. You know, everybody's looking for the place where your kids can find their people. And their kids have found their people at the theater. Mm-hmm. And when you peel back that onion, you peel back that comment, what are the attributes that you think really make that happen for kids at the theater? But then how are those attributes applicable to other venues within the city?
Well, that's what it's about. I mean, that's the greatest reward, is seeing those kids have their lights come on when they find a place. We have a really diverse population of kids, for one thing. We have a really diverse population of kids from socioeconomic backgrounds, from family experiences, education-wise, the way people choose to educate. But when you see them come in and they find that commonality of purpose and passion, that's what really unites people. And they feel that sense of belonging, and they feel safe, they feel seen, and I do believe that that's where the magic is. So speaking to how that can translate, because a small percentage of these kids may choose to have this be something that's lifelong, or to pursue it in a way where it's going to be their career. Most of the kids, the benefits that they're getting are going to serve them in anything that they choose to pursue. So the discipline that they get from the expectations of being a part of a production, from serving the team, from serving the ensemble in that way, they learn to work with a variety of different people. They learn to have empathy for people's stories. Every single story that you tell on stage. One of my favorite musicals is Once on This Island, and the line is, our lives become the stories that we weave. Every single story that you tell becomes a part of you, and you gain broader empathy for many different people and their many experiences. These kids are problem solvers. When you're in theater and when you're working on a nonprofit budget, you learn how to do it cheap. You learn to love the dollar store and the deal store, and you grab things off the shelves and you dance about with them or put them on your heads or somewhere else. So they're great problem solvers. They know how to show up, and they know how to present their best when they show up. They learn how to be intentional about how they want to present themselves when they show up in the world. They're well-spoken, they're confident, they're imaginative, they're creative. The list really, really goes on and on. And so I think for people in the community that are employers, these kids are learning also to have a service mindset. They have a lot of opportunities to serve and to give back to the community that gives back to the theater. And it all just keeps coming round and round.
It does. And I will say, when we first arrived in Springfield, I hoped that my kids would play football, at least my sons, and they did. But I have to confess to you, Lorianne, and beg of you for some mercy, because I've had more kids hurt on the stage at the theater than in contact sports.
Yes.
So what's up with that?
Absolutely.
The other thing, you mentioned earlier on that Springfield Little Theatre is a community theater. Yet for those who've lived in other places, there are different categories of community theater. And Springfield Community Theater has a degree of excellence about it that just kind of blows one's socks off when you've seen it compared to other places. And so you've got a couple things happening. You've got an excellence in terms of performance. You've got this wide bandwidth of it, including all kinds of people. So as a leader, how do you keep the sense of extreme excellence pulsating through your organization while at the same time saying, we're going to find a place for everyone?
Well, it's pretty simple. Excellence and lifelong friends. And everything you do drives you to both of those ends at the same time. And it informs every choice you make. It informs the way you choose to speak about the organization. It informs the way you choose to speak to people in the organization about the expectations that you set of their involvement and of their interactions with one another. Really, it's just hard work, and refusing to settle for less than your best every time. And that gets a little tricky once you set your own bar to keep exceeding that bar. And then allowing yourself the grace that you're not going to exceed that bar every time. Knowing that your best is going to change from day to day and from show to show. But being grateful for the people that are involved and for the experiences that you have and the stories you are honored to tell. That's what keeps you going. Just that commitment to excellence, no matter what. And then that becomes a part of the culture. And while I say that there's an entry for every single person that wants to be involved, if you don't subscribe to that culture and to that desire for excellence and to lifelong friends, you probably won't last there very long.
How's that set with you? Like, how do you work through that? Because I know you're passionate about wanting everyone to find this place, and yet you do have to say goodbye sometimes. And you have to bless people on, right?
Yeah, well, that's part of what we are. We're a revolving door. And so that's one of the best things, too, is that is our job. Just like a parent gets to raise their child until they're a certain age and then see them off to college, it's hard on us, too, to say goodbye to some of those kids that have come up through our programs and then graduate. That's very difficult, but that means we've done our job. And, we just tell them, you can always come home. That door is always open. This is always available to you. Time is a vortex there anyway. I have no concept of time because you're constantly doing something. And so you're just glad to see somebody again. And it meets a need. And when that need is met, you wish people well and you wish them to go find that fulfillment. Because that's really what you want. You want them to be able to aspire towards the best versions of themselves. And if there's a better place, or if this opportunity has met that chapter in their life, then that's wonderful. Just grateful to have been a part of it and that they were a part of that chapter in the theater.
One of those, you just got to experience that with Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, because one of the dancers, one of the performers.
Yeah. Little Amari, she had been in the production in fall of 2002 as a child, and then she had gone to LA to do her career, do her thing, spread her wings, make her place in the world, and family circumstances had brought her home for this period, and she came just to watch. She just wanted to sit in the seats and smell the theater. And if you've been there, you know what that means. she just wanted to feel it all. And so she came to auditions to watch. And there was actually a little girl that was auditioning for the first time, and she was crying. And Amari jumped right in there and went up to her and held her hand and encouraged her and walked her through that dance combination. And it was so great to have her home. And I poked her a little bit. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, no, I just want to sing. I'm not really auditioning. Here's my form. It just has my name on it. I just want to sing on that stage one time. And so she got up there and she sang, are you sure you don't just want to audition for the show? And so she did. A long story short, she did. And it's different when they come home, because when they're there, they don't really know exactly what they have. But that was one of the beautiful things of Omari coming back. Something she could really share and impart to the other kids is like, you're really lucky, and this doesn't exist in every other community, and this is something special and something to be treasured. So it was wonderful to have her on stage, because she was living every moment like the first and the last, and that's where magic happens as a performer, when you can be that present and just surrender and do it for the joy of it.
She's a great young lady, and she was very exuberant about the ability, everything she learned, and the ability to come back to that creation. Well, you are in the presence of a number of people who find faith significant in their life, and a number of people who love Springfield. Is there anything, any kind of pitch you would love to give to us? Any kind of challenge? Anything that you think as a community leader, you're like, I want to challenge you. I want to invite you to think about one or two things.
Ooh, the $1 million question.
It's yours. It's there for the taking.
Ooh, well, I think I'd just say, come play with us. That there is a place for you. Yeah, this is your community theater. So whether your passion for it is the history of the beautiful Landers Theater, and just honoring that and wanting to make sure that persists. There were several beautiful old theaters in this town, and now there are 3 historic theaters. So when you think about that, I feel like it really is a community responsibility to see that part of our history doesn't go away. I invite you to come see a show, to come have an experience. If maybe you haven't been there in a while, just come back and see how we've grown up a little bit. So just come back and see us. Come back and give it a try. It's a wonderful escape in this world where we're on our phones and we're looking at those screens and our life is moving a mile a minute. It's nice to just sit in those seats and see a story unfold and allow yourself to be transported by the circumstances, by the story, by the journey of another character and the people around them. And the children, they're inspiring to me. And, I don't know how that affects other people, but I know that I am moved when I see the light in their eyes, when I see their bravery, when I see their boldness on stage, when I see themselves put it out there. And when I think about their commitment to do not only the rehearsal process, but a 3-week run, night after night, and 2 shows on Saturdays, and to still can conduct themselves more gracefully than many adults would in that same scenario when they are tired and sometimes injured, and and the newness has worn off. That's when they learn to be real pre-professionals. But just come play with us. That's your invitation today.
Thank you so much, Lorianne, for being here. It's been a great joy, and I really appreciate you personally in so many ways. I really appreciate you from a family perspective. But our community is the richer, the better for it, because you're in it, because you're leading, because of the team that's at Little Theater. And there's a great asset, a great jewel in the Ozarks. So thanks for what you're doing at Springfield Little Theater.
Thank you, too, for what you're doing in the community. Thank you.